edition, give the GHS Purple Book and 29 CFR standard integration must be proceeded in accordance with regulatory guidance and implementation data.
Next slide. Lesson data, safety requirements, none. Risk assessment is low. Environmental considerations, none. Evaluation, none. Next slide. Overview, introduction, background. 3 categories of hazards. Safety data sheets and labeling. Next slide. Sergeant Stewart, you read off.
Hazard, communication, and GHS. GHS is an acronym for the Globally Harmonized System of Classification and Labeling of Chemicals. The elements in the GHS meet the basic requirement of any hazard communication system, which is to decide if the chemical hazardous, and to prepare a label and or a safety data sheet as appropriate. The U.S. will incorporate GHS through OSHA's Hazard Communication Standard 29 CFR 1910-1200.
Phase and period for GHS into Hazard Communication Standard. Effective completion date, December 1st, 2013. Training employees on the new labeling elements of SDS format to the employers. June 1st, 2015, comply with all modified provisions of this final rule except chemical manufacturer, importers, distributors, and employers. December 1st, 2015, distributors may ship products labeled by manufacturers under the old system until December 1st, 2015. June 1st, 2016, update alternative workplace labeling and hazard communication program as necessary, and provide additional employee training or newly identified physical or health hazards, which is the employers. Transition period, comply with either 20 CFR 1910 1200, this final standard or current standard, or both. All chemical manufacturers, importers, distributors, and employers. Next slide. Stand up, stand up.
Phase-in period for GHS Hazard Communication Standard. On December 1st, 2013, all soldiers, army civilians, and embedded contractors must be trained on the new label elements and SDS format. On June 1st, 2016, all army organizations will be required to have integrated GHS into their existing hazard communication program and must have completed transition to new workplace framework. Make sure SDS are available on every chemical and have placed at existing SDS sheets and have provided additional employee training for newly identified physical or health hazards.
Next slide.
No. 1200 Hazard Communication Standard for General Industry for GHS. Requires an employee to, number 1, have a written hazard communication program. Number 2, have each hazardous chemical and workplace properly labeled. 3, have a material safety data sheet, MSDS, for each hazardous chemical in the workplace. 4, train his or her employees about the hazards associated with and precautionary measures required for each hazardous chemical in the workplace. Training is required initially and anytime geohazardous chemicals introduced into the workplace.
Slide. How does GHS change hazard communication at the installation? Hazard classification rather than hazard determination. Safety data sheets rather than MSDS, material safety data sheets. Uses a 16-section format. Labels are more defined with special requirements. Business because of U.S. Army adopt OSHA standards, CAR 385-10, 16- or that's 2 policy, it is required to meet the implementation/integration dates. Next slide. Sound great.
Scope of DHS covers all hazardous chemical substances, pollutants, and mixtures, pharmaceuticals, hazardous cosmetics, and pesticide residues in food will not be covered at the point of consumer/end.
Next slide. What are GHS hazards? The categories of hazards are physical, health, environmental, non-mandatory. Note, hazards not otherwise classified HNOC by GHS are required to be included on SDS Section 2 and will be addressed in employee training. Next slide.
DHS physical hazards, explosive, flammable gases, flammable aerosols, oxidizing gases, gases under pressure, flammable liquids, flammable solids, self-reactive substance, and pyrophoric liquid.
Next slide.
GHS physical hazards. Physical hazards. Pyrophoric solids, self-heating substances, substances which in contact with water emanate flammable gases, oxidizing liquids, oxidizing solids, organic peroxide, corrosive to metals.
Next slide.
Health hazards, acute toxicity, skin corrosion, irritation, serious eye damage by irritation, respiratory or skin sensitization, germ cell, mutagency, last word,
This is cancer. Last word is cancer.
cancer.
Next slide.
Reproductive toxology, target organs, systematic toxicity, signals, exposure, aspiration, toxicity, target organic,
Systemic toxicity.
repeated exposure.
Sorry.
This on?
Bay, read this slide.
New environmental hazards. Hazardous to the aquatic environment, acute aquatic toxicity, chronic aquatic toxicity, bioaccumulation potential, rapid degradability.
Next slide. Role of SDS in the GHS. The SDS provides comprehensive information about chemical substance or mixture. Primary use, the workplace. Employers and workers use the SDS as a source of information about hazards and to obtain advice on safety precautions. The SDS format will make finding hazard and chemical information easier. Note, SDS, formerly known as Material Safety Data Sheets, MSDS, Next slide. Sorry, Lopez. Yeah.
SDS format, 16 headings. SDS is now in a standardized format. Identification, hazards, identification, composition, information on ingredients, first aid measures, firefighting measures, accidental release measures, handling and storage, exposure control, personal protection.
Next slide. Physical and chemical properties, stability and reactivity, toxicological information, ecological information, disposal considerations, transport information, regulatory information, other information. Next slide. This is the format for SDS, which is taking the place of MSDS. It's hard to see right now, but you'll start seeing this in your options. Next slide. Labeling. Is there a specific GHS label format / layout? The actual label format or layout is not specified in the GHS. However, there are required label elements. Next slide. Go ahead, Rita. Sound off, please.
Label elements, product identifier, supplier identifier, chemical identity, hazard pictograms, signal words, hazard statements, precautionary information. These 3 elements, all hazard warnings, are required to be located together on the label.